Okay, some breaking news this morning. Tim Lewis is set to leave Arsenal. The Athletic have come in with the exclusive, saying that Tim Lewis to leave position as Arsenal Executive Vice Chair. What I'm going to do, I'm going to read out some bits of the article. I won't read the whole thing. This is obviously behind a paywall. Wouldn't be right for me to read the whole article. But I'll give you some of the key lines that will be doing the rounds on socials. I'll give you a bit of a reaction to it. What I'm not going to do is pretend I know more about Tim Lewis's role than I do, and pretend that I've got a really kind of good grasp and understanding of what kind of goes on behind the scenes at Arsenal to understand whether this is a great thing or a bad thing. But I will say this early. I think fan sentiment will be positive. I think most people will feel quite good about this, and I think there's been an underlying feeling that Tim Lewis, for whatever good work he's done at Arsenal, and the article does say that he's got a good working relationship with Mikel Arteta, that he was a part of the Eze deal, and his relationship with Steve Parish helped get that over the line. And look, there will undoubtedly have been some good work done. He's been a part of the overarching kind of group of people who have foreseen the growth of this team towards challenging for titles and stuff. There's no doubt he'll have done some good work, but I think a lot of people feel that he has been massively in the way when it comes to a lot of the work that Arsenal have perhaps wanted to do over the years. And I'll expand on that in a second, explain why that might be the case. Let me just read a little bit of the article. Forgive me that I'm not really positioning this camera perfectly, but I'm not actually in a position to kind of do much more than this. So here we go. So Tim Lewis set to leave. He's the Executive Vice Chair. Okay, whatever that means. Corporate lawyer, and that's important. Corporate lawyer Lewis, 62 years old, has advised Arsenal's ownership group, Kroenke Sports and Entertainment (KSE) since 2007. But became a director of the Premier League club, that is Arsenal, in September 2020, and was then promoted in March 2023. He's been long associated with Stan Kroenke, and the shock exit represents a dramatic change in Arsenal's leadership structure. So apparently Josh Kroenke is going to be more involved than ever before, and Ben Winston, the film producer and director and Arsenal season ticket holder, will be joining as well. He also says that there will be further additions made to the board with 2 more KSE representatives. Okay. Sure, more people are coming in, who they are and what they do. We will learn about. If anyone has really good insight on what Winston might bring, then great, leave it in the comments. But look, this is like when we appointed Gabriel Heinze. Didn't really know what to say. He'll be a part of the coaching team, and we know he was a very good player for Man United, and he's a left back, so he might help in that area. I can't really say too much about the people incoming. But with Tim Lewis, there has been some really interesting discussion behind the scenes. Not behind the scenes, but sort of behind the general chit-chat of Arsenal. While we talked about the transfer window, what Arteta needs to do, what Kroenke needs to do, what Andrea Berta is adding, there has been, Tim Lewis's name floating around, with quite a few people suggesting that he's been, as I mentioned earlier in the video, almost getting in the way, almost been the blocker for Arsenal making more significant investments to compete with the Liverpools in the window they just had, or the Man Cities, or some of the biggest clubs in Europe. Now, why is that? Now, I'm going to say something. I want to make this very clear. This is not reported. It might be loosely reported in places, and maybe where I'm getting this information is from years and years, and I can't quite remember where it's been. It's been reported at some point. But it's definitely stuff I've picked up reading online, chatting to other fans, and sort of reading reports over many years. But my understanding, and it could be incorrect, I want to reset, this is opinion I'm about to give out. I'm not reporting, this is opinion. My opinion of my understanding is that Tim Lewis might well have been an appointment, he's a corporate lawyer, right? In response to some bad business done by Arsenal over quite a few years, in particular the Nicolas Pepe deal, where there were supposedly massive payments to agents and other people to get certain deals done, the kind of work that Raul Sanllehi was a part of. Whether you will agree with that or not, I'm not here to pass judgment on that, but supposedly Arsenal wanted to move away from that kind of thing and keep a much stricter eye on where the money was going and where the money was being spent at the club. Tim Lewis came in around COVID times, and around a time when Arsenal were really struggling to A, be efficient in the market, B, be financially profitable. We know we haven't been profitable for a while. I think in the last year or two we might have been. Again, I might be wrong on that. And I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could come here with cold hard fact. This is just a reaction channel to the reports, and I think, you know, I have to spend hours doing proper research and a proper video. If you'd like to see that, by the way, I can make that video. Let me know in the comment section below. This is a raw reaction. But it feels like Tim Lewis came in as a response to things like the Pepe deal and sort of bad business being done here and then. Now, some people online, Arsenal fans who I respect and follow, have sort of pushed the opinion or suggested that there's been certain business we wanted to do, and to perhaps Tim Lewis keeping such a close eye on where the money's going and how it's being spent and what really needs to be added to this squad to get things done, perhaps giving more footballing opinion than he should from a financial mindset, has actually maybe got in the way, has maybe stopped Arsenal spending the kind of money that many people feel Arsenal should have been spending. It's left us with lighter squads. It's left us with always that one or two players short. And the one time Andrea Berta comes in, suddenly we've got this plethora of options. Mikel Arteta has always talked about wanting a bigger squad, saying that, you know, we're what's he say? Not we're too small. What's the exact wording he says? That we're short, essentially, right? And you wonder, well, why has that not been addressed? Why has it taken basically 5-6 seasons Mikel Arteta before we finally sort of just went crazy and ended up with this massive squad? And I wonder whether behind the scenes this summer there was a difference of opinions. Maybe things like the Eze deal, which kind of happened very randomly out of nowhere. You kind of think, well, did Arsenal want to do that sooner? Did they have to force Tim Lewis's hand? But they give Tim Lewis credit for his relationship with Steve Parish in getting that deal over the line. But was it Andrea Berta and Arteta and maybe Josh Kroenke that had to? And yeah, these are three people with massive power, by the way. I'm not saying Tim Lewis necessarily gets in the way of all three of those, but is he someone who maybe, you know, had a different opinion on how things should go? And if everyone doesn't align, then actually you've got to move on and shake up the team. Like, I don't know. And look, I could be slandering him here, right? None of this could be true. Absolutely none of this could be true. But the general feeling online has been that maybe Tim Lewis, if you read between the lines, has been someone who hasn't always been putting football first. I mean, when you read the article, he does say that he's a massive advocate for fair play and that he didn't want specific takeovers to happen in the league. And you sort of hear about all those things and you think, okay, this is someone who maybe kind of really plays by the rules, which is, I mean, he's a corporate lawyer, right? It's kind of what he's there to do. But is there a point at which maybe his grasp on whatever part of the club he had an impact in, maybe it was too big an impact? And look, he's a corporate lawyer, he might sue me for saying all this. Let me state once again, this is opinion based on what I've kind of been seeing online. Tim Lewis came in at a time where Arsenal weren't spending money very well. And I think since he's arrived at the club, I'd say Arsenal spent money very well. But I think we've all felt that there should have been more done across previous windows. See this window we just had? We didn't need to have this big a window if we'd had the previous two, say January and, you know, maybe the summer before. If they'd been kind of bigger windows, if they'd been more ambitious, we wouldn't have needed the kind of window we just had. It wouldn't have needed 8 players coming in, maybe 5 or 6. And it does feel like Arsenal took a very dramatic turn in the way they were suddenly willing to do business and address the squad. And as we do that, Tim Lewis leaves. Could it be a coincidence? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. And if you have any kind of better insight on it, let me know. I'm just trying to make sense of something that, when it comes to these things, when we talk about the team and the players, no, we don't see coaching, no, we don't see what Arteta does all the time, and we don't see training, but we see what they produce on the pitch. With Tim Lewis, it's much harder to know what he's ultimately produced. And that makes me pretty indifferent to this kind of news. But my feeling is that there'll be plenty of people that are quite happy about this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. A video previewing Man City is coming out later today, so look out for that. Catch you in a bit.